Yeah. Know what it is? Your boy DL47 back in this building for real, revisiting as much rugby league information as possible. Handle that business on the grind all day. Thank you for being patient with me while I had a little time off. But now we're back and we're going to continue the wooden spoons. This video right here, the 1947 wooden spoon in Australian Rugby League. And as always, so you don't miss any crucial rugby league information, you need to watch this video all the way to the end. And this one's going to be quite a long one, quite a tricky one with quite a lot of explaining, especially near the end of the video. But bear with me and hang in there because it's, like I said, it's crucial, vital information that no rugby league fan can afford to miss out on. So, first of all, we'll begin by saying that 1947, a brand new era in Australian Rugby League had just kicked off with two new teams entering the competition. So that's Manly Sea Eagles and Parramatta Eels, both entering the comp in 1947 simultaneously, and have both been acrimonious arch rivals since day one. And a lot of people know they are arch rivals, but this is actually where the arch rivalry spawned, so to speak. So we're just going to find out exactly why they hated each other so much from day one by watching this video all the way to the end. So obviously, with two new teams entering the competition, we went from 8 teams in the comp up to 10 teams in the competition. And previously, when there was 8 teams in the competition, everyone would only end up playing 14 games in the season. But excitingly now, with the two new teams, 10 teams in the comp, everyone would play 18 games in the season. So what would happen is every team, no matter which team you supported, you'd play the other 9 teams once. That was 9 games. Then you'd play the other 9 teams again a second time. So that's 18 games altogether. So 2 brand new teams, 14-round season up to an 18-round regular season. Exciting stuff. And unfortunately, in their very first year, it was Parramatta Eels who picked up the 1947 wooden spoon. Only by a smidgen, only by a fingernail, but they did in fact get it. But they did at least fight hard. They did at least conjure up some impressive wins, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. And forgivable, I think. Like, even though their stats are very poor, they did only win 3 games and lose 15 of the 18 games. And in attack, they managed 230 points. But in defence, they conceded a very big 424 points. So a for and against of minus 194. Remember, it's only their first year. It takes time for teams to, takes a few years for a team to develop into a heavyweight, into a premiership contender sort of thing. So we can forgive them for having this poor season. And Manly, who finished, the other new team, Manly, actually finished second last in 1947, and they were pretty much, they were nearly just as bad. Just when we got to the end of the season, we'll see how Manly just avoided the wooden spoon. So, I don't normally say it, but the first game of the 1947 season, because it's the new team entering the comp, the very first game, round 1 in 1947, Parramatta's first ever game, they would play at Cumberland Oval, which was their home ground at the time. It's not too far away from CommBank Stadium, where they play these days. So their first ever game in their history, they lost to Newtown Jets 34 points to 12, 1947 round 1 at Cumberland Oval. And the other new team, Manly, played at their home ground, Brookvale Oval, and they went down to West's 15 points to 13, despite scoring 3 tries to 1. And in that game, it was the West champion player, Bill Keto, who kicked a lot of penalty goals for West to get the win. But, like I said, Parramatta's video here. So, Parramatta getting off to a frustrating opening to their first ever campaign. So after that round 1 loss to Newtown, they ended up losing the first 8 games consecutively. And even more frustrating from their point of view, the round 8 games, so the 8th of those consecutive losses, 1947 round 8, Parramatta went down to Manly 15 points to 7, so it's bad luck losing to the arch rivals. That just happened to be Manly's first ever win in their history. So straight away, the two teams, even though they were fresh and just entered the comp, and even though they were losing to all the other teams, and even though they were down in last and second last place on the ladder, they were still neck and neck at each other's throats since day one. So the first game Manly ever won just happens to be against Parramatta, unfortunately. So then, over the second half of the season, Parramatta's performances improved, and they picked up a few wins. They had 3 very good wins. 1947 round 9, their first ever win. First game Parramatta ever won, 1947 round 9. A very impressive 13 points to 8 win over West. And West, of course, were one of the heavyweight teams at the time, so mildly impressive. Parramatta finally breaking through. And then in round 14, they had a thrilling win against Eastern Suburbs, 14 points to 13 at the old Sydney Sports Ground. The old Sydney Sports Ground is just basically where Allianz Stadium is now, just used to face the other way, but like it's been obviously demolished and new stadiums have been rebuilt in its place, but it's basically the same thing in the same place. And then, in round 16, 1947, Parramatta avenged their earlier loss to Manly, and this time beat Manly 11 points to 6 at Cumberland Oval. So, that's Parramatta's moment in the sun in 1947, the 3 games that they did win, because I always mention every wooden spoon team's moment in the sun and most embarrassing moment for said wooden spoon season. So that's their moment in the sun. And also, before we forget, I should have mentioned it earlier, but before we forget, Parramatta's leading try and point scorers for the 1947 season, a player called Keith Gersbach. He amassed 10 tries for them in 1947, which for a debutant and for the team making their debut, I think is quite impressive. And the top point scorer, his name was Bob Andrews, and he got 3 tries, 26 goals for a total of 61 points for Parramatta in the 1947 season. So those 2 players, like impressing, even though despite the fact that they were losing most of the games. So then, here's where it gets really tricky, and we're going to need a lot of explaining why you needed to watch this all the way to the end. So after Parramatta's outstanding 11 points to 6 win over fellow rivals Manly, 11 points to 6 in round 16, at that point in time, Manly and Parramatta were last and second last place on the ladder, and they both had exactly 3 wins for exactly 6 competition points, and there just happened to be only 2 games left, round 17 and round 18. So both Manly and Parramatta, a 50-50 equal chance of avoiding the wooden spoon. And Manly, they put their best foot forward, and they came up with their 4th win of the season. 1947 round 13, Manly defeated Eastern Suburbs 23 points to 12 at the old Sydney Sports Ground. Then 1947 round 18, Manly had lost to Canterbury 30 points to 17. So that left Manly with 4 wins on 8 competition points, which meant that Parramatta would have to win at least one of their last 2 games to draw level and maybe get ahead of Manly on for and against, or win both of them. But unfortunately for Parramatta, they weren't able to win either of the 2 games, despite their best efforts. 1947 round 17, they had lost to Canterbury 23-10, and 1947 round 17, they'd lost to Canterbury 23-10, and then 1947 round 18, Parramatta had lost to Western Suburbs 33 points to 10. So, took to the very last 2 rounds of the season to decide it, but eventually, with both teams with 1 hand each on the 1947 wooden spoon, it was Manly who broke free and handed the wooden spoon to Parramatta, unfortunately. Now, that doesn't sound too bad at the time, because, like I said, it was Parramatta's first season, and you can forgive them for getting the wooden spoon in the first season, like hoping that they would improve eventually, and no one would have known at the time, but unfortunately, this was the beginning, even though it was in 1947, 70-something years ago, the very beginning of a perennial trend for both Manly and Parramatta. Now, what do I mean by that? I just said that Manly narrowly avoided the wooden spoon by 1 single victory over East in round 17, 1947. Manly then kept that habit of always avoiding the wooden spoon, and all these years later, all the way up to the end of the 2023 season last year, Manly has still never got the wooden spoon, not once. Even years when Manly did finish second or third last, they still never finished dead last and got the wooden spoon. But unfortunately for Parramatta, this started their trend of picking up wooden spoons. And believe it or not, and I know no Parramatta fan wants to hear it, Parramatta have accumulated a humiliating 14 wooden spoons altogether. And that's where it all started. In 1947, Manly just avoided the wooden spoon. That continued to the present day. And in 1947, Parramatta got the wooden spoon. That's continued throughout their history, unfortunately, too. Parramatta's other wooden spoons, which I'm obviously going to get to eventually as we go through these wooden spoons 1 year at a time. In 1952, in 1954, they got the wooden spoon again, second and third time. In 1956, 1957, 1958, 1959, 1960 and 1961, Parramatta picked up an unfortunate 6 consecutive wooden spoons, and that's the record for most consecutive wooden spoons by any team ever. Then they got it again in 1970 and 1972, also got it in 2012 and 2013, and again in 2018. So their most recent wooden spoon, 14th wooden spoon in 2018, again, a situation where Parramatta finished last, and Manly only just avoided it finishing second last by a matter of for and against points in 2018. So that's where their rivalry always stems from. The fact that Manly were always just avoiding the spoon, like in the early days, both teams were pretty ordinary, weren't doing well. But Manly always just avoiding the wooden spoon and Parramatta getting it a lot of the time. Until, of course, the 1970s and 1980s, where they were the 2 heavyweights in the competition, and they played each other in a lot of finals and grand finals. that's where all the rivalry actually stems from, the very first season for both of them in 1947. So, and one more thing, with Parramatta's 14 wooden spoons, there's only one other team ever who's got more wooden spoons, and that was the West Magpies, who participated in the competition the years 1908 all the way up to 1999 as a standalone entity. And they picked up an incredible 17 wooden spoons. And even though they picked up more wooden spoons than Parramatta, getting 17 compared to Parramatta's 14, West never actually got 6 consecutive wooden spoons. So, unfortunately for Parramatta, that's where their wooden spoons all begin in 1947. So I know it's harsh listening for all you Eels fans out there, but got to give the brutal, honest facts, honest proofs in these videos. And here they are. So there you go. Well, need a lot of explaining that one. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, so you didn't miss any imperative rugby league information. Even if you're a Parramatta or Manly fan, and it's hard information to swallow, it is all important. Boy DL47 all day. Obviously, the next video is the 1948 wooden spoon, which isn't Parramatta. Thankfully, it isn't Parramatta. Boy DL47 all day for real. Thank you so much for watching. Scroll through this channel to find hundreds of other important rugby league information videos. Subscribe to the channel, share this with all your rugby league mates. Toodaloo.